Hey everyone, it's Amir Ali. Welcome to Code and Cadet by Sam. Today we are going to dive into two very popular technologies used in microservices for communication: REST APIs and GraphQL. Now both are powerful tools for synchronous communication between services in microservices world. But the big question is, how exactly do they differ? And when should you use one over the other? Let's break it down step by step. Before we get into the detailed differences between REST APIs and GraphQL, it's important to first understand how microservices actually communicate with each other. Because once you are clear on the types of communication, grasping REST and GraphQL becomes much easier. So in a microservices architecture, there are generally two types of communication: synchronous and asynchronous. Let's start with synchronous communication. Here, one service sends a request to another and it has to wait for a response before moving forward. Think of it like making a phone call. You ask a question and you wait right there for the answer. For example, a user service calls an authentication service over a REST API to validate login credentials. It cannot proceed until it gets a response, either success or failure. This type of interaction usually happens through technologies like REST APIs, gRPC, or WebSockets. Next, we have asynchronous communication. Here, one service sends a message and then simply continues with its work. It doesn't wait around for an immediate response. It's more like sending an email. The receiver can reply whenever they are ready. For example, an order service publishes an event like order placed to Kafka and then keeps moving ahead without waiting for the email service or the inventory service to respond. This pattern is usually implemented using tools like Apache Kafka, RabbitMQ, Amazon SQS, or ActiveMQ. And by the way, on Kafka, I've already made a detailed video explaining its key components. You'll find the link in the description below. Do check it out for more clarity. Okay, now first let's discuss about the REST APIs. What are the disadvantages or problem using REST APIs in microservices architecture? Let's take a real world example. Imagine a user opens the product page on our e-commerce website. Now the front end needs to display a lot of details: product info, seller info, reviews, and even related products, etc. So first, the client sends a request to the product service. Let's say request URL is /products/123, and it gets back details like the product name, price, description, and image. Next, the front end also has to show who the seller is. So it makes another request, this time to the user service. Again, let's say request URL is /users/seller ID. And here we get the seller's name and rating. Now comes reviews endpoint or API. The front end sends yet another request to the review service. Its URL is /products/123/reviews. And we finally receive a list of reviews for this product. Still not done. At the bottom of the page, we also need related products. So the client sends one more request, this time to the related service. For example, /products/123/related. That returns a list of related product IDs. But wait, for each of those product IDs, the client again has to go back and call the product service. Let's say this time endpoint URL is /products/124 get /products/125 get /products/126, just to fetch their names and images. Now let's pause for a second and think, what is the problem here? The problem is front end is making multiple round trips. In simple words, client is sending multiple requests each time. For example, here he has sent 5, 6, or even more requests just to build a single page or just to get expected response. And every time the user navigates or refreshes, all these calls happen. Alright friends, now let's try to understand how GraphQL works and why it's considered so powerful, especially for modern applications like our e-commerce website. So let's break it down in the microservices world. Think of GraphQL like ordering food from a menu. In REST APIs, the server gives you a full dish, whether you actually need all the items or not. But with GraphQL, you simply tell the server exactly what you want, nothing more, nothing less. It's like saying, "Bhaiya, I just want rice and salad, skip the soup and bread." Simple, clean, and efficient. And this is the beauty of GraphQL. Your data becomes lighter, faster, and way more efficient. Let's take another example. Suppose you're building a product page for your e-commerce app. You want to show details for product ID 123. In GraphQL, we can send a simple query to a single endpoint like this, and the server responds with only the name and price of the product. Notice how clean this is. No extra fields, no unnecessary data. Just the two things the client actually asked for. That's the power of GraphQL. Okay friends, now let's take this one step further. What if the client also wants the product description and image along with the name and price from the same endpoint? In GraphQL, it's super simple. The client just adds those fields to the same query, or I can say endpoint. No need to call a separate endpoint as we was doing in REST APIs. No need to write extra API calls. Just modify the query and ask for exactly what you need. For example, the client adds description and image fields in the same query. It now includes everything the client asked for and nothing extra. All from the same endpoint, just by changing or adding fields. No here is response against endpoint. Simple, right? The client is fully in control of what he or she wants to get in the response. Alright friends, let's take another example. This time with nested fields. Think about it. Products are usually sold by sellers, right? And that seller might also have some extra info like their name and rating. Now here's the beauty of GraphQL. You don't need separate API calls for product and seller. You can just go one level deeper in the same query and directly ask for nested data. For example, let's say we want the product name and along with it the seller's name and rating. In GraphQL, we simply write that in the query. The seller becomes a nested object, and inside it we specify the fields name and rating. It comes back neatly with exactly what we asked for: product name, and seller rating. And here is response. With GraphQL, you only need one endpoint to fetch exactly the data you want, even if it's nested or coming from multiple microservices behind the scenes. No need to hit 5 different REST APIs. No need to filter out or ignore unwanted data on the front end. You just describe your data needs in the query and GraphQL does all the heavy lifting. It's faster, cleaner, and tailor-made for modern microservices applications. So friends, let's quickly wrap this up. REST API are simple and widely used, but sometimes they bring extra overhead. You may need to make multiple requests to get all the data, and often you receive more information than you actually need. GraphQL, on the other hand, gives you flexibility and control. With a single endpoint, you can fetch exactly the fields you want, no extra, no less, and even get nested data in one shot. In short, REST is like ordering a fixed dish where everything comes by default. And in other hand, GraphQL is like you choose exactly what you want on your plate. Both are powerful, but GraphQL shines when you need efficiency, flexibility, and real-time performance in modern microservices. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Your little support really helps me grow here. And hey, press that bell icon too, because I'm going to cover all Java interview question topics from basic to advanced level. Thanks for watching. Then see you in the next video. Bye bye and keep learning.